Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. And I hope you're going to go and spoil yourself and get yourself something really refreshing to drink, because if anybody deserves it, you do. And whether it's something lovely and warm or something refreshing or something alcoholic or non-alcoholic, you go and get it. So tell me about how the weather is in your part of the world. Is it getting warmer where you are right now? Because some of us are looking forward to spring. So before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up. What I would like to say to everybody is that this is part 2 of our story, because our story was very long. And so if you haven't heard part 1, please go back to the part 1. I'll leave it here on the description for you. This is a story where we've got a very disagreeable mother-in-law. She's not nice at all, but she's the kind of mother-in-law that it doesn't matter who you bring home, she's just not going to like you. But what are the lengths that she will go to in order to ensure that you don't marry her son? What are her limitations? Well, you're about to find out now in this story. But what she didn't bargain for was the help of a Bigfoot. So let's get started. Over the next 3 weeks, as Nicholas and I stay in the cottage section of his mother's home at the Oregon coast, my relationship with Meryl, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, goes from bad to worse. Of course, in front of Nicholas, she's as sweet as honey, turning up the charm an extra notch. Regretfully, Nicholas fails to see that his mother is putting on a huge, perfidious act for his benefit. Suffice to say, he falls for her guileful duplicity, hook, line and sinker, rather like a trout clamming its jaws onto a fisherman's worm, and unsuspectingly being slowly reeled in. When her son Nicholas is expediently out of sight, that is when Meryl, with her artful Machiavellian, stealthful cunning, like a wild cat, loiters in the dark shadows, waiting to pounce on me unaware. She allows her true colours to come blazing forth to the surface with the same brazen audaciousness as an unbridled, unrestrained bison, galloping across the open plains. She lays into me ferociously hard, her poisonous tongue flickering like a snake, the loose jowls on her jaw jiggling with indignation. If World War III is brewing, its lowly embers are creating sparks in her home, and it is then that I know in my gut that this woman will stop at nothing to try and ruin my relationship with Nicholas. But then where lie the bounds and the limits of her depravity? If you think, Bayer, dear, that I will allow my son to marry a girl like you, you've got another thing coming, dear. She scowls at me. Her jaw clenches tightly. Look at you. You're not even an oil painting, are you? You've got the most dowdy girl next door looks. That straight, long black hair of yours with the big bangs, it's so not in fashion. You don't even know how to dress like a lady, do you? And if that's not bad enough, you're not the brightest brick in the block. Oh, and you are you, Meryl? By golly, you're intelligent, I say sarcastically. Also, I think you'll find that Nicholas has made up his mind about me. And with or without your blessing, I think you'll find we're getting married. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, Meryl. You really are quite the obnoxious girl, are you not, Bayer? Says Meryl, lowering her tone of voice. I just want to make one thing very clear, my dear. If you think you can get your oscillating tentacles snared around my son, you've got another thing coming. She lowers her voice and looks at me defiantly. I will stop at nothing, Bayer, and I mean nothing, dear, to get you out of Nicholas's life. And I'm not joking either, because a woman like me does not joke about things like that. Do you hear me, girl? Do you know what I'm saying? I will stop at nothing. What's your problem, Meryl? Why the hell are you so jealous? You want your son all to yourself, don't you? You don't want any other woman to have any claim on him whatsoever. You're right about that, Bayer. Perhaps you aren't as stupid as you look after all. My son, for your information, is my entire world. I'm the only woman in his life. It's always been that way, and it will never change. Nicholas and me against the entire world. And I'm not going to let some pompous little upstart whose feet are way too big for her boots steal my son from right under my nose, because that is never going to happen. I think you'll find it's already happened, Meryl. Can you not see? We love each other. Don't you even care about Nicholas's happiness? Or are you so intent on trying to come between the two of us? If you are, it's not going to work. We love each other. Don't you get that? And there's not a lot you can do about it. In the end, if Nicholas is forced to choose between the two of us, there's no prizes for guessing who he's going to choose. And I regret to tell you, Meryl, it's not you. How dare you insinuate my son would choose you over me? You forget, dear, says Meryl. I know my son. I've known him all his life. You've only been with him for 6 months. That's like a little drop in the ocean, a splatter of chocolate on a kitchen counter that can so easily be wiped away and remembered no more. I can assure you of one thing, Bear, and that is very, very certain. That is how fast it will be to remove you from my son's life. A mere wipe on the kitchen counter, removing the melted chocolate. What are you going to do, I laugh? Kill me with a pitchfork in your yard? Poison my coffee with some antifreeze? Meryl is quiet for a moment and says nothing, but her fiery eyes betray her fury. In that moment I realise that Nicholas's mother means exactly what she says. Her talk is not idle, nor is it anything less than threatening. She means business. She'll stop at nothing to eliminate me from her son's life, and that scares me bounteously, as in that moment I'm not quite certain what she's capable of, but I'm sure it's bad, really bad. Of course, I express my deep concerns to Nicholas, but he's under the fallacious, somewhat pseudo-impression that his mother Meryl is going out of her way to make me feel welcome, but it seems he's been treacherously deceived yet again. For one normally as intuitive as Nicholas, it does tend to leave me feeling slightly dismayed. Can he not see how manipulative his mother is? I can see my mother is going to a great deal of effort to make you feel welcome, Bear. She's never done that before with any of my previous girlfriends. So things are very different now. They're looking up. Don't you see? I protest. When she's with us, she's charming to me. She tells me how nice I look, and what a pleasure it is to have met me, and how she's looking forward to being my mother-in-law, and to our wedding day. But then when your back is turned, Nicholas, she turns on me like a rattlesnake. I believe she'll stop at nothing to come between us. Listen, sweetheart, says Nicholas, taking me lovingly into his arms. I know my mother can be a very difficult woman. I acknowledge, Bear, I've told you. My mother has always been very possessive of me. She's never going to like any of my girlfriends, and that's a fact. I imagine it's 1,000 times worse for her, knowing that you and I are getting engaged. You just need to let her get her head around it, stew over it for a while. In time, I imagine she will begin to accept it. Well, she'll have to, because she won't have any choice in the matter. Well, I hope you're right, but I don't share your optimism, Nicholas. I pour myself a glass of wine from the bottle that is open in the refrigerator. It's funny, Nicholas doesn't drink this wine. I never remembered opening this particular bottle. I retreat to the soft, cosy couch in the small guest cottage that is separated from the house. It's a modern home, but other people have lived here over the years, as they've rented this place out, so they've somehow managed to add a little bit more warmth to the place. I'm so grateful we're living in this cottage. I couldn't face the prospect of living in Nicholas's mother's house, with her breathing down my neck all day, making me feel uncomfortable and unwelcome. You mean getting married, Nicholas, I correct? You said we're getting engaged, we're getting married. Look, I've bought some wedding magazines to get some ideas for us. Well, that's a very good idea, but don't let my mother see any of those if you know what's good for you. Not yet, anyway. I need to go, he says, kissing me gently on the cheek. An old friend of mine who lives in these parts wants to spend the evening with me. He lives an hour away from here, so I will possibly be sleeping over at his place, as we'll be drinking lots of beer tonight. I don't want to be driving back slightly inebriated, so I'll see you in the morning. I groan. Can't I come too? You can if you want to, but I doubt you'll find it very exciting. We have lots of catching up to do, Mark and I. I haven't seen him in an age. Oh, I don't think I'll come then. I'll be fine here. I've got these magazines to look at. You go. Besides, I'm actually feeling quite tired all of a sudden. I hear Nicholas driving away from the cottage. I can sense that I can barely keep my eyes open. It's the sea air, I tell myself, and that long walk I had on the beach earlier this afternoon. I do love being close to the sea. I find I sleep very deeply at night because of the high levels of oxygen in the air. But I've never been this tired before. I feel quite knackered, actually. I get up and find myself feeling ever so slightly light-headed. And now I'm almost staggering up the staircase, trying to crawl back to bed. I'm even on my hands and knees. What the hell is wrong with me? I feel as if the wine has gone straight to my head. My head is spinning. When I reach the bed, I collapse, and I begin to sink back into the sheets so gratefully. And then I must have just fallen fast asleep. The next thing I know is I feel as though I'm encompassed in these huge, all-embracing, powerful, strong arms, covered in long, flowing black hair. I can smell smoke. I begin to cough and splutter. I feel as if my lungs are seizing up. I feel as if I can hardly breathe. I look up to see this huge, hairy, human-like face staring down at me. I realise it's a Bigfoot, not a human. The head is distinctly pointed. The creature is looking at me with concerned, troubled, deep-set brown eyes. He carries me down the sweeping staircase. I feel like a fragile doll in his hands. This dream, it's so lucidly real. But I don't want it to end. The Bigfoot makes me feel so snug and safe, enveloped in his huge warm arms. I giggle. This is a lovely dream. The Bigfoot is now standing at the foot of the stairs. He's gliding with me through the living room, but the wall of glass is no longer there. Where is it? It looks like it's been shattered. I can feel the fresh breeze whipping against my face. It's dark on this tenebrous night, but I can hear the sounds of the waves crashing against the shoreline. The Bigfoot is carrying me in his arms so gently, holding me close to his chest so that I can hear the rhythmic rise and fall of his breath. I behold silver shafts of dancing sunlight caressing his long flowing dark hair. I discern the whole creature in all his fabulous glory, fully appreciating his lofty majesty, for absolutely everything about him is regal and imposing. There is an intelligence about him that is not of this world. I can't believe the sheer size of him. He must be easily over 8 foot tall, built like a powerful piece of farming machinery. He might well weigh about 800 pounds or more. He smells like the salt of the ocean, the soil of the earth, the dew of the rain. I realise that what I thought was a dream is real. But how can this possibly be? I really feel like I'm floating in a dream. Even the way the Bigfoot is gliding over the soft sea sand, his feet sinking deeply beneath its golden depths, is so beautiful. It's so illusory. I cannot wake from this. The energy that surrounds me is so surreal. It's like the sun on a cold day warming your body, or like a colourful rainbow splashed across the horizon after the rain. It's bewitchingly enchanting. I want to cling to this dream for dear life, to never, never, never let it go. The Bigfoot glides seamlessly over the soft sand without jolting me once. He puts me down at the far end of the beach, and I sink into the soft sea sand. Behind us is a vast wooded embankment, of which I know very well, only about 300 feet away from the cottage. It consists of towering ponderosa pines, Douglas firs and big-leaf maple trees growing up proud and tall among a plethora of sculptural rocks. In front of me is the vast, ceaseless expanse of the blue ocean, and the sounds of the waves crashing towards the shoreline, spreading out their soft, white, frothy foam across the sand. Little crabs are running around the place, and the fresh smell of sea salt infuses the air, intoxicating me with its fresh delight. The dark night stretches before us like a big, black, soothing blanket, blocking out the light, so that I can fall asleep seamlessly, while the gentle, ethereal light of the moon, along with the silvery stars, are like a gentle night light, enabling me to see what needs to be seen, without being intrusive or offensive in any way. The Bigfoot sits down next to me. I feel incredibly safe with him sitting next to me, even though I know absolutely nothing about him. Until this point in time, I'd certainly never believed that such an outlandish creature even existed in North America. All my scathing doubts and cynicism have been put to shame in this poignant moment, because I've come to the realization that I'm not dreaming, that this creature is actually real, and there are no words said between us. The creature watches me. He looks guarded and protective, like an umbrella sheltering me from the rain, or a life raft rescuing me when I'm drowning in the ocean. A strange voice enters my head. I realize it's the Bigfoot. How could he possibly speak to me without words? That's not possible, is it? But I distinctly hear an audible male voice in my head. "You'll be safe now." Is this what it feels like when people claim to hear the voice of God, I wonder? I try to process what has happened on this enigmatic, paradoxical night. There was wine, wasn't there? It made me feel exceedingly sleepy. It was easily accessible to me in the refrigerator, but I don't remember even having opened that bottle. I'd felt strange as well after I'd drunk that wine. Light-headed, woozy, floaty even, desperately tired. Then the smoke. Where had that come from? What was going on? My mind was a blur. I then slip into a deep sleep, and when I wake up, I'm all on my own. It's early morning. I can see the sunrise being birthed over the peninsula. It's beguiling. It grabs my attention. It takes me a while to come to my senses. What am I doing fast asleep on a beach, I wonder, at this hour of the morning? It all seems so surreal. My eyes gaze at the pink, purples, reds and orange splashed over the horizon. I marvel at them. I hug my knees to my chest, with the soft sea sand powdering my bare feet with their granular exfoliation. The cool breeze is blowing gently on my face. I can smell very strong smoke in the air, intermingled with the smell of sea salt. Then I see a lone figure, walking on the beach, with his head staring down at the ground. I hear dreadful sobs coming out of the back of his throat. I recognise that sound. I recognise that figure. It's Nicholas. Why on earth is he so upset? I run towards him. "Nicholas! Nicholas, what's wrong? Why do you look so upset?" My fiancé looks up at me through eyes soaked by his own tears, as if I'm a ghost, as if he can't possibly believe I'm real. "Bea! Bea! Is that really you?" I grin at him. "Of course it's me, silly. You look as if you've seen a ghost. What are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be at your friend Mark's." "But I don't understand." The next thing I know is he grabs me in his arms, holding me tightly to his chest. "Don't you ever do that to me again. Don't you ever scare me like that. I've been through hell the last few hours." "Do what?" I asked. My fiancé looks at me soberly. "There was a fire in the cottage last night. The heat was so intense it shattered the windows. The firemen arrived on the scene. The cottage is completely destroyed. They said they couldn't save you. They assumed you must have perished in the fire. There is nothing left of the cottage. When I left, I think they were looking for your human remains. My mother called me to tell me the dreadful news. She told me you died in the fire. I asked her what had happened. She said she smelled smoke, looking out of her window, and saw that the flat was on fire, but there was no sign of you anywhere. Everyone assumed the worst." I take Nicholas's hand in mine. "Let's go and sit over there on the beach," I said. "We've got some talking to do." Nicholas is still looking at me, almost as if he's terribly afraid that I'm not really real. and that I'm a ghost. "It's me, Nicholas," I said. "I promise you it's me," I say, squeezing his hand tightly. Nicholas is bemused. His face registers confusion. His forehead bursts into undulating lines of perplexement. "But what happened? How did you get out of that fire? What started it? Do you remember?" "Well, yes, I do. I remember sitting on the couch, and you were telling me you were leaving to spend the evening with your friend Mark, who you hadn't seen for ages, and that you would be returning in the morning. You said you would be doing a lot of drinking." "That's right, I remember that." "Did you tell your mother you were spending the evening with Mark?" "Yes, I did, as it happens. I was actually going to bring you along with me, but it was my mother who put a spanner into the works about that. She suggested that me and Mark hadn't seen each other for ages. It wouldn't be fair on you to bring you over to his house, as you would be bored out of your skull, listening to us drone on about the good old days, with all that man talk, as you would feel like the spare wheel, surplus to requirements, so to speak. If you must know, my mother was being very considerate, I thought. She was the one who insisted I spent the night at Mark's house, as I can't drink and drive. Well, she suggested you had an early night. She was very concerned about you. She said you looked very fatigued of late." "It seems like your mother had this worked out so perfectly," I say gingerly. Nicholas looks nonplussed. "What are you implying, Bear?" "You know, it's funny, Nicholas, but you never drink white wine, do you? There was an open bottle of wine, my favourite as it happens, in the fridge that I have no recollection of ever opening. I did think that was peculiarly strange, I must say. I probably thought to myself that I couldn't remember opening it, so I just poured myself a glass moments before you left for Mark's house. And after I began to drink, my head was spinning. I became so light-headed, I could barely make it back to bed. In fact, I was literally crawling on my hands and knees. It was like my head became floaty, and I couldn't even think straight. I do remember thinking that I'd never felt this peculiar after drinking a bottle of my favourite wine before. And that was when I hit the bed. I was out like a light." "What are you saying?" "Well, I believe your mother put sleeping tablets into the wine so that I would fall asleep. She did it deliberately, Nicholas. I know she did. Nicholas, I believe that your mother insidiously started this fire on purpose. I told you she would stop at nothing to get me out of your life." "Are you suggesting my mother wanted to kill you, deliberately starting a fire like that?" said Nicholas, looking at me aghast. "My mother may be many things, Bear, but surely a murderer she is not." You know what I believe, Nicholas? I believe your mother loves you so much. She loves you intensely. She can't bear the prospect of losing you to another woman. She's admitted as much to me. I think she's capable of doing anything when it comes to her son. Do you know, she told me yesterday that she could wipe me out of your life faster than melted chocolate spilled on a kitchen counter, and that she would do it too. "Why the hell did you not tell me this?" said Nicholas, looking at me aghast. "Believe me, I told you, Nicholas. The trouble is with you, you don't listen because you don't want to believe what I'm telling you. And you want to believe the best in your mother. Every time I was in your presence, she would turn on that charm like the hot water in a kitchen tap. But the moment your back was turned, I promise you, on came the icy cold water. Your mother became treacherously cold towards me, telling me that there would be nothing, she would stop at nothing, that could ever come between her and you. She told me in no uncertain terms she would get me out of your life." "Did she now?" said Nicholas, his face blazing with anger, his eyes firing up with indignation. "My mother tried to bloody kill you. I get that now. But what I can't comprehend is how on earth did you manage to escape from that fire? If you were dead to the world, the smoke should have killed you when you were fast asleep. I don't understand how you got out." "That's where my story becomes bizarre," I tell him. "I don't actually think you're going to believe me when I tell you what happened. In truth, I thought I was caught up in a beautiful dream, on which I never wanted to awaken because it was so good. But then I discovered to my amazement that this was no dream. It was real. I was gobsmacked. There's no easy way to say this, Nicholas, and I will quite understand if you don't believe a word of what I tell you.
But I swear on my mother's pink pyjamas that I was rescued by a Bigfoot. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. All I know is I woke up to find myself in his arms. He was carrying me through the cottage, through the open glass windows that had been shattered. I think he shattered them. So I don't even know how he knew I was in the cottage. Everything is very blurry and hazy, but I do remember coughing and wheezing from the smoke. It was really bad. Then I realised I was out on the beach, when I could feel the breeze blowing against my skin. Do you know, Nicholas, he even spoke to me in my head telepathically. And I know it sounds crazy, but he did. He told me I'd be safe now. I promise you, Nicholas, he was gargantuan, intimidating. His eyes, Nicholas, they were like the eyes of God. They wrapped me in such a tangible love. He made me feel so safe and secure. When I woke up moments ago, he was gone. But I think he stayed with me all night. I groan as I look at Nicholas's dumbfounded, befuddled expression. Oh, God, I knew you wouldn't believe me. But I promise you, Nicholas, as outlandish as it sounds, it's true. How else do you think I got out of the cottage in one piece? How else did I get out of there alive? For a moment, Nicholas is looking at me through discombobulated eyes, as if he's confounded and pixelated by my incongruous revelations. My God, you saw a Bigfoot? I wonder if it's the same one I saw from time to time on this stretch of beach as a young boy. You never told me you saw a Bigfoot. "Da," said Nicholas. "It's not exactly the kind of thing you randomly tell a stranger. Oh, by the way, when I was 9 years old, I used to sit next to a Bigfoot on the beach. They'd never believe a word of it. They'd think I was as nutty as a fruitcake. It's not something you share with anyone. It's something you keep very private to yourself." So you used to see a Bigfoot on this very same stretch of beach where we're sitting right now? The very same. I remember we lived on this stretch of beach all my life, in the original house that used to stand here, before my mother bulldozed it and built her architect's creation. As a young boy, I used to get up very early in the morning. I wanted to watch the sunrise over the peninsula. It was spectacularly beautiful. I know. I witnessed it myself this morning. It was breathtaking. So many incredible colours. Well, one day when I came down on the beach to watch the sunrise, I think I must have been about 9 years old at the time. I was an only child, so coming down to the beach brought me a great measure of solace. I was walking up and down the beach. I saw a tall figure sitting on the sea sand, watching the sunrise, and I realised I was in good company. Someone else was here to appreciate the sunrise, just as I was. I was quite ballsy at a young age, used to adult company, quite confident really. I approached the stranger, promptly plonked myself on the ground right next to him, saying how beautiful the sunrise was, as the colours were splattered across the peninsula in pinks and oranges, and it was bedazzling. Every morning the sunrise was profoundly different, almost as if the artists of the skies were rearranging the colours every day. When I turned around to look at the man that I was talking to, I realised he was not a normal person. He was a Bigfoot. But being a 9-year-old boy, I wasn't intimidated by the creature. On the contrary, I was intrigued. I liked this Bigfoot at once. Even though he was daunting in size, brawn and stature, there was an engaging warmth about his presence that was electrifying and magnetically drawing. It was like I wanted to be in his presence, rather like a lizard might enjoy lying on a sunny rock, as it warms his cold skin up. It was rather like that. His presence was all-consuming. I just continued to talk to him, as if he was an old friend I'd known all my life. He had beautiful eyes. They twinkled brightly. He nodded at me when I sat down, but continued to watch the sun rise. And when the ribbons of pretty colours came across the sky, he went, "Ah, ah," as if he was admiring a great work of art in an illustrious gallery. I would also go, "Ah," and he would turn around. Our eyes would meet, as if we were both sharing this remarkably magical moment together. Once the sun had risen, he would nod his head at me, then he would glide away and be gone. Often when I got the opportunity, I set my alarm very early in the morning and trotted down to the beach to see if the creature was there, and it was almost like he was expecting me. He would say nothing when I sat down next to him, but nod at me, and once the sun rose, he would get up and walk away. He was tall, agile, covered in long, flowing dark hair. He had a distinctive little scar on his cheek, shaped like a heart, I think it was.
Oh, my God! The creature that rescued me had a scar like that on his leathery cheek. It must have been the same Bigfoot you saw as a kid. He was the one that rescued me last night. All of a sudden we hear Nicholas's mother calling him. "Nicholas! Nicholas! Where are you?"
"Go and hide behind the tree there," said Nicholas. "I don't want my mother knowing you're alive. I've got a great idea up my sleeve that's going to wipe that smug, duplicitous smile off her face. She tried to kill you last night. I can't forgive her for that. You are my world, Bear, and she's going to be in for the shock of her life. Just you wait and see." I quickly retreat behind the tree. Then I see the elegant figure of Merrill, walking across the beach, carrying her sandals in her hand.
"Oh, there you are, darling," she says, seating herself beside her son, blindly oblivious that I can hear every word, as the tree I'm hiding behind is at the edge of the beach, 2 feet away from where they're both sitting. "I'm so sorry, darling. I can't imagine what it must be like to lose your fiancé in such a terribly atrocious way."
"No, I don't suppose you can understand, Mum. I doubt you've ever loved anyone like I loved Bear."
"Oh, look, darling, don't be like that. I married your father once, remember, and I cared about him a great deal," she says, putting her arms around Nicholas's back, resting her head lovingly on his shoulders. "Accidents happen, darling. It's part of life, and if it's any consolation at all, I'm sure Bear didn't suffer. The fire chief was telling me she would have died very swiftly from smoke inhalation. But that flat of ours went down like an ice cream cake. It melted from the heat. It was so intense. Even the window shattered. The firemen told me that they didn't find her bones, which is rather bizarre, as bones apparently don't get burnt in a fire. They usually find charred remains, usually a body even. But there was no sign of Bear in that fire. That's what they're telling me now. But in my opinion, she must have been in there because there's no sign of her. Maybe human bodies melt. Maybe the fire was exceedingly hot. Anyway, apparently there has to be an investigation into the fire to check that it was an accident. But the fire chief was assuring me that he believes it's one of those fortuitous tragedies. I do have to tell you, he was an exceedingly handsome-looking man, very attractive.
"What I don't understand, Mum," says Nicholas, "is how the fire actually started."
"Well, he was telling me they think that they do know the cause of the fire," said Merrill. "It appears that your fiancé put on a chip pan of hot oil, and then she forgot all about it, and that's all it took to get the fire going. It was completely out of control. I expect your fiancé drank a glass of wine and got terribly sleepy before she goes to bed. She always does that, does she not?"
"But why would Bear make chips in the middle of the night?"
"Well, darling, when you drink wine, you often get very hungry. I expect she got hungry. Never you mind, Nicholas. Everything is going to be fine. There are plenty of fish out there in the sea, and I'm sure you'll meet someone very soon."
"Maybe, Mum, but from where I'm standing, none of the fish that I've ever brought home have come up to your exacting standards. And Bear was the one for me."
"I'm going now," said Merrill, "back to the house. You stay out here and watch the ocean. It's very therapeutic, you know. When you come back, we can have some tea together, talk some more. It's a blip, darling, a blip on the page of your life. But you wait and see.
Things in time will be as right as rain, and you'll soon forget all about Bear. That I can promise you." Nicholas and I watched his mother walking back to the main house, without a care in the world. Did the woman have no conscience? She had tried to kill me last night, for goodness sake. "I've got a plan," said Nicholas. "Remember when we were thinking of going to Vegas to get married?" I nodded. "Well, I've got that Nevada wedding license in the front of the car, along with your ID and passport. None of that got burnt. It's all in my cubbyhole, thank God. I've decided we will go back to our apartment in Portland, get packed, take a short flight to Nevada. It's not that long a flight from here. A couple of hours, maybe, I think it is. I will book us into the Bellagio, and then we'll get married at one of those little venues. I think we'll take the Ace of Hearts package at the Viva Las Vegas Wedding Chapel. And when we return home, I will invite my mother to a hotel for dinner in Portland. And when she's sitting down at the table with me, you will walk in to join us. You'll give her the shock of her life. And when she sees you're alive, then we will announce to her that we got married and confront her with what she has done. We'll get the police in on everything, so I will be wired up, and she will confess to us that she was trying to murder you. We'll get that all on tape. Don't you worry a thing about that. We'll get her for what she's done to you." To cut a very long story short, which is possibly an excellent idea, as believe me, this is a long story, as far as stories go. Nicholas and I stayed at the Bellagio in Vegas for a couple of days. We had a fabulous time there. I bought a gorgeous, stylish white dress on the strip that I can wear again. We both tied the knot there. Then we flew back to Portland. Nicholas surreptitiously invited his mother to dinner at a hotel there. I was champing at the bit to see her face when she discovered I was alive. The police had been informed about what they suspected Merrill had done, and Nicholas had been wired up so he could extract her confession. The police pretended to Merrill that the fire brigade had recovered Bear's remains. I gather she burst into crocodile tears on the phone. "Oh, that is so dreadful, officer. It's so sad to hear that. What a waste of life. Oh, Bear was so precious to me. She was just like a daughter. I loved her so much." "I'm very sorry for your loss, madam," he had said. Nicholas's account. I'm sitting there at the hotel, having ordered a cold beer for myself, waiting for my mother to arrive. The anger I feel towards her cannot be measured. She tried to kill Bear. I'm in no doubt about that. She was the one that must have put wine in the refrigerator and put sleeping tablets in it. She was well aware that Bear, as a matter of routine, always drank a glass of cold wine before bed. It helps her to sleep. My mother knew her plan would work like clockwork, as Bear would drink the drugged wine, while her beloved son was safely out the way. I was spending the evening with Mark and sleeping over at his house. When my mother believed Bear was asleep, she had slipped into the cottage using the spare key to gain access, where she had surreptitiously planted a hot chip pan of boiling fat onto the gas hob, helping to set the place alight and to cause an explosion, so that it looked like a natural house fire. She was reasonably confident that Bear would sleep through it all. My mother moves towards me gracefully, with a big smile on her face, as she approaches the table. She kisses me tenderly on the cheek. I want to wipe her kiss away. It's so disgusting. "Hello, how are you, darling?" She reaches for my hand. "More to the point, how are you doing? Are you feeling any better, dear? I know losing Bear like this couldn't have been easy for you. But as I keep telling you, darling, you will get over her, dear. You're good like that. You've always been remarkably resilient. You'll bounce back. I know you will." The waiter presents us with the menu, and then Bear walks towards the table. My mother's face freezes in astonishment. "Hello, Merrill," she says. "I don't think you expected to see me here tonight, did you? What was it you were saying? That you would wipe me out of your son's life like the spilt chocolate on a countertop? But I'm not so easy to wipe away, am I, Meryl? The colour drains from my mother's face. But I thought you were dead. You did, didn't you? Says Bea, her eyes growing wide. We know exactly what you did, Meryl. You tried to kill me. You put sleeping tablets in the wine. You put a chip pan of hot oil on the hob. You burnt down your own cottage because I was in it. That's right. You tried to kill my wife, Mother.
Your wife? What you talking about, Nicholas? Bea is not your wife. Well, I think you'll find she is now, Mother. Bea, show Mother your new wedding band. We got married the other day in Vegas, if you must know. So it's official.
Yes, it's official. I'm Nicholas's wife. Not so easy to wipe away, am I, Meryl? Meryl's face looks blank. She's lost for words. All right. I admit it. I did it. I'm sorry. And that was all that was needed for my mother to be arrested. She's now serving a prison sentence. Do I feel bad about turning my mother in? Hell no. She tried to kill my wife. She tried to destroy our lives. So she's getting exactly what she deserves. 15 years in prison. It should be more. Then she'll be out. But I hope she's learnt her lesson. And if that wasn't bad enough, I found out that my dad had been in touch numerous times over the years with me. He'd sent me a plethora of letters, tons of presents, had begged me to come and stay with him and his family. But my mother sent everything back to him, along with a fake letter from me, telling him to get the F out of my life. But the good news is, my father and I are now reunited, and I have a stepmother and 3 half-brothers, so life has blossomed for me. And I owe all this good fortune to the kindness of a Bigfoot. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.